Section: Introduction. In this section, we introduce our research focus on enhancing the reasoning capabilities of large language models, LLMs, through long chain of thought, COT, generation. We recognize that LLMs have shown impressive reasoning skills in areas like math and programming, particularly when using COT prompting, which helps models outline their thought processes before reaching a conclusion. However, we also note that these models still face challenges with complex reasoning tasks, such as those found in math competitions and advanced scientific questions, even with COT prompting. We highlight recent advancements from OpenAI's o1 models, which have made significant progress in these areas. A notable feature of these models is their ability to effectively manage longer COTs, employing strategies like identifying and correcting errors, breaking down complex steps, and exploring different approaches. Many attempts have been made to replicate the success of o1 models by training LLMs to produce longer COTs, often relying on verifiable rewards to ensure accuracy and prevent reward manipulation in reinforcement learning, RL. Our work aims to systematically explore how models generate long COTs. We focus on several key areas. 1. Supervised fine-tuning, SFT. We investigate how SFT can directly enhance long COT reasoning, analyzing its effects on model performance and RL improvements. 2. Challenges in RL for COT scaling. We observe that RL does not consistently increase the length and complexity of COTs. To tackle this, we propose a new reward mechanism that stabilizes COT growth while promoting advanced reasoning behaviors like branching and backtracking. 3. Scaling verifiable signals for long COT RL. We recognize the importance of verifiable reward signals for stabilizing long COT RL but face challenges due to the scarcity of high-quality data. We explore using noisy, web-sourced solutions, which, despite their uncertainty, can be beneficial when mixed appropriately in SFT and filtered in RL. 4. Understanding long COT abilities and RL challenges. We find that essential skills like branching and error correction are already present in base models, but effective RL requires careful design of incentives. We analyze how these incentives affect long COT generation and examine reasoning patterns in pre-training data. Next, we define our notation and provide an overview of SFT and RL methods for generating long COTs. We denote a query as X and the output sequence as Y. The model, characterized by parameters theta, defines a conditional distribution over output tokens. We refer to the tokens in the output that form the COT as COT Y, which represents the reasoning or explanation sequence. The final answer may be a separate set of tokens or part of Y. We describe long COTs as extended reasoning sequences that not only have more tokens but also exhibit complex behaviors like branching, backtracking, and error validation. In our approach, we typically start with SFT on a dataset, followed by optimization through RL. We define a reward function that encourages correct reasoning, focusing on the final answer's accuracy rather than the intermediate steps. We utilize proximal policy optimization, PPO, for policy updates, employing a rule-based verifier to compare predicted answers with ground truth, guiding the model to generate higher reward tokens. Section Summary. In this section, we explore the mechanics of generating long chain of thought, COT, sequences in large language models, LLMs, focusing on supervised fine-tuning, SFT, and reinforcement learning, RL, methods to enhance reasoning capabilities. We address challenges in scaling COT length and complexity, propose strategies for stabilizing RL-driven COT growth, and examine the origins of long COT abilities, emphasizing the importance of verifiable reward signals and effective incentivization. Section: Training Setup. In this section, we describe our training setup. We utilize LLAMA 3.1 to 8b and Quen 2.5-7b math as our foundational models, representing general and math-specific models, respectively. For both supervised fine-tuning, SFT, and reinforcement learning, RL, we default to a training set of 7,500 prompts from math, which includes verified correct answers. During SFT, When we have these correct answers, we generate responses using a method called rejection sampling. This involves selecting a fixed number of candidate responses for each prompt and keeping only those that match the correct answers. We also consider more diverse data sources like Web Instruct, which lack verified answers. Our models are trained using the OpenRLHF framework. For evaluation, we focus on 4 key reasoning benchmarks: Math 500, AMY 2024, Theorem QA, and MMLU Pro-1K. Since our training data is mainly mathematical, these benchmarks allow us to assess performance both within the mathematical domain, using the Math 500 test set, and outside of it, using AMY 2024, Theorem QA, and MMLU Pro-1K. By default, we generate outputs from the models with a temperature setting of 0.7, a top p-value of 0.95, and a maximum output length of 16,384 tokens. More details on the evaluation setup can be found in the appendix. Next, we examine the impact of SFT on long and short chain of thought (COT) data in the context of RL initialization. To compare long and short COT, we first need to prepare the model for the specific type of data. The simplest method is to fine-tune the base model on COT data. Since short COT is more common, we can easily create SFT data for it through rejection sampling from existing models. However, obtaining high-quality long COT data is still a challenge. For our setup, we gather SFT data for long COT by distilling from QWQ32B preview, while for short COT, we use Qwen 2.5 Math 72B Instruct, which is effective for short COT in math reasoning. We perform rejection sampling by first selecting a number of candidate responses for each prompt and then filtering for correct answers. For long COT, we use candidate counts of 32, 64, 128, 192, and 256, while for short COT, we use counts of 32, 64, 128, and 256, skipping one count for efficiency. The number of SFT tokens corresponds to the number of candidates selected. We use the LLAMA 3.1 to 8B model as our base. Our results show that as we increase the SFT tokens, long COT SFT consistently improves model accuracy, while short COT SFT reaches a limit early on at a lower accuracy. For example, on Math 500, long COT SFT achieves over 70% accuracy and continues to improve even with 3.5 billion tokens, whereas short COT SFT levels off below 55% accuracy, with only a slight improvement from increasing SFT tokens. We also explore SFT initialization for RL, as RL is believed to have a higher performance ceiling than SFT. We compare long and short COT as different SFT initialization methods for RL. In our setup, we initialize RL using SFT checkpoints and train for 4 epochs, sampling 4 responses per prompt. We use a method called Proximal Policy Optimization (PPO), with a rule-based verifier from the math dataset, utilizing its training split as our RL prompt set. We apply a cosine length scaling reward with a repetition penalty, with further details available in the appendix. Our results indicate that models initialized with long COT SFT can be significantly improved through RL, while those initialized with short COT SFT show minimal gains. For instance, on Math 500, RL enhances long COT SFT models by over 3% in accuracy, while short COT SFT models show little change before and after RL. Section Summary. In this section, we describe our training setup using LLAMA 3.1 to 8B and Qwen 2.5-7B math models, focusing on a 7,500 sample prompt set for SFT and RL, and we evaluate model performance on various reasoning benchmarks. Our results indicate that long COT SFT consistently improves accuracy with increased training tokens, while short COT SFT reaches a saturation point, and models initialized with long COT SFT benefit more from RL compared to those initialized with short COT SFT. Section: Sources of long COT SFT data. In this section, we compare two methods for creating long chain of thought, COT, data. The first method involves generating long COT sequences by prompting short COT models to produce basic actions and then combining these actions. The second method distills long COT sequences from existing models that already show long COT patterns. To create long COT sequences, we developed an action prompting framework that defines several basic actions: clarify, decompose, solution step, reflection, and answer. We used a short COT model, like Qwen 2.5-72b instruct, to sequence these actions through multi-step prompting, while a more advanced model, O1 Mini 0912, generates reflection steps that include self-correction. For the distillation process, we utilized QWQ32 Preview as the teacher model. In both methods, we used the math training set as our prompt set and applied rejection sampling. To keep things consistent, we used the same base model, Llama-3.1-8b, maintained around 200,000 SFT samples, and followed the same reinforcement learning setup. Our results show that the model distilled from the emergent long COT patterns performs better than the one created from constructed patterns and can be significantly enhanced with reinforcement learning, while the constructed pattern model does not show similar improvements. Models trained with the emergent long COT patterns achieved much higher accuracy on out-of-distribution benchmarks, improving by 15 to 50%. Additionally, on the theorem QA benchmark, applying reinforcement learning to the long COT model improved its accuracy by about 20%, while the short COT model's performance remained unchanged. This is why we focused most of our experiments on distilled long COT trajectories. Next, we explore how the design of reward functions impacts the length of COTs and the performance of the models. Our experiments confirm that models fine-tuned on long COT data tend to increase their COT length during reinforcement learning training, although this can sometimes be unstable. We addressed this instability using techniques that penalize excessive length and repetition to stabilize the training process. We fine-tuned two models on long COT data from QWQ32b Preview, using a context window size of 16,000. The models we used were Llama 3.1-8b and Qwen 2.5 Math 7b, along with a rule-based verifier and a simple reward of 1 for correct answers, which we call the classic reward. Our findings indicated that both models increased their COT length during training, eventually hitting the context window limit, which led to a drop in training accuracy. We also noticed that different base models behaved differently in terms of scaling. The weaker LLAMA 3.1-8b model showed more fluctuations in COT length compared to QWEN 2.5 Math 7b. We found that the rate at which COTs exceeded the context window size plateaued at a certain threshold, indicating that exceeding the limit started to negatively impact the COT length distribution. We discovered that we could stabilize the scaling of COT length through reward shaping. We designed a reward function that considers COT length and includes specific ordering constraints. Correct COTs receive higher rewards than incorrect ones, and shorter correct COTs are rewarded more than longer correct ones, encouraging efficient use of inference. Conversely, shorter incorrect COTs receive higher penalties than longer incorrect ones, prompting the model to think longer if it is less likely to provide the correct answer. We implemented this using a piecewise cosine function, which is easy to adjust and smooth, and we refer to this as the cosine reward. In our experiments, we compared the classic reward with the cosine reward, using the Llama 3.1-8b model fine-tuned on long COT data. Our results showed that the cosine reward significantly stabilized the length scaling behavior of the models during reinforcement learning, which also improved training accuracy and efficiency. We observed enhancements in model performance on downstream tasks as well. Section Summary. In this section, we compare two methods for curating long chain of thought, COT, data, constructing long trajectories from short COT models and distilling them from existing long COT models. Our results show that models trained on distilled long COT patterns outperform those constructed from short COT patterns, achieving significantly higher accuracies on various benchmarks, particularly when enhanced with reinforcement learning. Section: Cosine reward hyperparameters. In this section, we explore the tuning of cosine reward hyperparameters to influence the length of our chain of thought, COT. We conducted reinforcement learning, RL, experiments using the same model, which was fine-tuned on long COT data from QWQ32B preview, but we varied the hyperparameters for the cosine reward function. We adjusted the rewards for correct and incorrect answers and observed how these changes affected COT lengths. Our findings indicate that when the reward for a correct answer increases with COT length, the COT length grows significantly. Additionally, we noticed that a lower correct reward compared to the wrong reward leads to longer COT lengths, suggesting that the model becomes more cautious in its responses. Next, we examined the impact of context window sizes on model performance. We set up 3 experiments with the same model fine-tuned on long COT data, using different context window sizes of 4K, 8K, and 16K. We found that the model with an 8K context window outperformed the 4K model, but surprisingly, it performed better than the 16K model as well. This suggests that more training resources are needed for models to fully utilize larger context windows. We also observed signs of reward hacking, where the model increased COT lengths on difficult questions by repeating answers instead of learning to solve them. To address this, we implemented a repetition penalty, which was most effective when applied to repeated tokens rather than as a general penalty. Our experiments showed that using the repetition penalty improved performance on downstream tasks and resulted in shorter COTs, indicating better use of computational resources. Furthermore, we investigated the optimal discount factors for applying the repetition penalty and correctness rewards. We found that a lower discount factor effectively enforced the repetition penalty, while a higher discount factor enhanced the correctness reward. Interestingly, reducing the discount factor for the correctness reward led to increased branching in the COT, as the model tended to abandon less promising paths too quickly. This behavior may reflect a short-term focus, which could degrade overall performance. We believe these insights could be valuable for future research, particularly in understanding the relationship between reward distribution and decision-making processes. Section Summary. In this section, we explore how tuning the cosine reward hyperparameters affects the length of chains of thought, COT, in reinforcement learning experiments, finding that increasing the reward for correct answers relative to wrong ones leads to longer COTs. Additionally, we investigate the impact of context window sizes and repetition penalties on model performance, revealing that optimal discount factors for rewards can enhance learning while mitigating reward hacking behaviors. Section: Scaling up verifiable reward. In this section, we discuss scaling up verifiable reward signals, which are crucial for stabilizing long chain of thought reinforcement learning, RL, in reasoning tasks. We face challenges in scaling this data due to the limited availability of high-quality human-annotated verifiable data. To address this, we investigate using more accessible but noisier data, such as reasoning-related question and answer pairs from web sources. Specifically, we work with the Web Instruct dataset and create a deduplicated subset called WEBINSTRUCT462K using a technique called min-hash. We begin by adding this diverse data to our supervised fine-tuning (SFT) process. Although the supervision signals may be less reliable, we believe that the variety in data can help the model explore better during RL. We set up 3 different scenarios, changing the amount of data without gold standard supervision signals to 0%, 100%, and about 50%. For SFT, we distill from a model called QWQ32B preview. For the data with gold supervision, like math, we use the correct answers for sampling. In contrast, for the Web Instruct data, we sample 1 response per prompt from the teacher model without filtering. Our results show that including silver supervised data enhances average performance. Specifically, adding Web Instruct data to long COT SFT results in a significant accuracy improvement of 5 to 10% on the MMLU Pro-1K benchmark compared to using math alone. Furthermore, combining math and web instruct data yields the highest average accuracy across various benchmarks. Next, we compare two main methods for obtaining rewards from noisy verifiable data. One involves extracting short-form answers and using a rule-based verifier, while the other uses a model-based verifier that can handle free-form responses. A key consideration is whether the question and answer pairs can yield short-form answers, so we also filter the dataset to keep only those samples. We implement the model-based verifier by prompting a model called Qwen 2.5 Math7b instruct with the original reference solution. To extract short-form answers, we first prompt LLAMA 3.1 to 8b instruct and then apply rejection sampling with QWQ32b preview. This process generates two responses per prompt from WEBINSTRUCT 462K, discarding cases where neither response matches the reference answers, resulting in about 189,000 responses across 115,000 unique prompts. Our case studies reveal that rejection sampling eliminates many prompts because some lack short-form answers suitable for our rule-based verifier, and others are too complex for QWQ32b preview. For SFT, we train Llama-3.1-8b on the filtered dataset to prepare for the RL phase. In RL, we use the full 462,000 prompt set in the unfiltered scenario and the 115,000 subset in the filtered scenario, training with 30,000 prompts and 4 responses per prompt. Our findings indicate that using a rule-based verifier on the filtered prompt set with short-form answers yields the best performance across most benchmarks with the same number of RL samples. This suggests that a well-filtered rule-based verifier can provide high-quality reward signals from noisy verifiable data. Additionally, compared to models trained on human-annotated verified data, like math, using noisy but diverse verifiable data still significantly enhances performance on out-of-distribution benchmarks, with gains of up to 2.9% on Theorem QA and 6.8% on MMLU Pro-1K. Conversely, applying a rule-based verifier to unfiltered data results in the poorest performance, likely due to its low accuracy on free-form answers, while the model-based verifier performs much better. Finally, we explore the method of RL from the base model, as previous work has shown that long chain-of-thought reasoning can develop by increasing RL compute on a base model. We aim to replicate this progress by running a limited number of RL iterations to observe the emergence of long-caught behavior, including critical functions like self-validation and correction. Section Summary. In this section, we explore the use of noisy verifiable data, such as reasoning-related QA pairs from the web instruct dataset, to enhance long chain-of-thought reinforcement learning, RL, despite the challenges of limited high-quality human-annotated data. Our experiments show that incorporating this diverse data improves model performance, achieving significant accuracy gains, particularly when using a rule-based verifier on filtered datasets with short-form answers. Section: Nuances in analysis based on emergent behaviors. In this section, we discuss the nuances in our analysis based on emergent behaviors. We observe that self-validation behaviors can sometimes be seen as emergent or aha moments during the model's exploration, particularly since these patterns are infrequent in short chain-of-thought data. However, we recognize that some self-validation behaviors may already be present in the base model, and enhancing them through reinforcement learning, RL, requires specific conditions, like having a robust base model. For our setup, we train Qwen 2.5 Math7b using proximal policy optimization, PPO, with our own rule-based verifier on around 8,000 math questions at levels 3 to 5. We set the temperature to 0 for inference, as our initial tests indicate that this approach generally yields better results than using a higher temperature. We also limit the output length to 4,096 tokens, matching the training context length. To prevent bias in the output, we use zero-shot prompting for the base model. We analyze 5 key terms: wait, recheck, alternatively, retry, and, however, from previous long chain-of-thought cases to measure how often the model engages in self-validation. More details on the RL hyperparameters can be found in the appendix. Our results show that while RL from Quen 2.5 Math 7b improves accuracy, it does not increase the frequency of the recheck behavior in the base model's output, nor does it effectively promote other reflective patterns like retry and alternatively. This suggests that RL does not necessarily encourage reflective behaviors, even though it significantly enhances performance. We need to be cautious in identifying emergent behaviors. Next, we explore the impact of length scaling. We find that increasing output length is a key aspect of effective model exploration. However, we notice that this increase can sometimes coincide with a decrease in KL divergence, suggesting that the length may be influenced by the KL penalty and could simply be reverting to the longer outputs of the base model, rather than indicating improved long chain of thought capabilities. In our analysis, we also calculate the coding rate, defining outputs as coding if they include the term Python, since Quen 2.5 Math 7b uses both natural language and coding to solve math problems. Our findings indicate that while the output length increases after an initial drop, it never surpasses the base model's initial length. This initial drop may result from the model shifting from longer coding outputs to shorter natural language outputs. However, we observe that natural language outputs tend to be longer than coding outputs, and the initial drop occurs in both types. The coding rate later increases, suggesting that the difference between coding and natural language does not significantly affect the optimization process. We suspect that the subsequent increase in length is not due to the model's exploration, as the KL divergence decreases when the length increases, indicating that the KL penalty may be influencing this length. If this is true, the potential for the policy output length to exceed that of the base model is limited by the KL constraint. We also analyze why we do not observe emergent behavior with Quen 2.5 Math 7b. Our analysis suggests that it does not fully replicate the training behavior of DeepSeek R1. We identify two potential reasons. First, the base model is relatively small, which may limit its ability to develop complex skills quickly. Second, the model may have been overly exposed to short instruction data during pre-training, leading to overfitting and hindering the development of long chain of thought behaviors. Finally, we compare the performance of RL from the base model with RL from long chain of thought supervised fine-tuning, SFT. Our setup involves using the base model Quen 2.5 Math 7b, with results from the base model trained previously. For RL from long chain of thought SFT, we use a similar setup, selecting a training set of 7,500 math questions and curating SFT data through rejection sampling. We apply PPO with our cosine length scaling reward and a rule-based verifier, sampling 8 responses per prompt and training for 8 epochs. To adapt Quen 2.5 Math 7b for long chain of thought SFT and RL, we multiply its rope parameter by 10. Our results indicate that RL initialized from the long chain of thought SFT model significantly outperforms RL from the base model and even improves upon the long chain of thought SFT itself. Specifically, RL from long chain of thought SFT with our cosine reward surpasses RL from the base model by an average of 8.7% and improves over the SFT initialization by 2.6%. Notably, simply applying SFT with long chain of thought distilled from QWQ32B preview already yields strong performance. Section Summary. In this section, we analyze the emergent behaviors and performance of the Quen 2.5 Math 7b model, noting that while reinforcement learning, RL, improves accuracy, it does not enhance self-validation patterns already present in the base model. We also find that RL from long-COT supervised fine-tuning, SFT, significantly outperforms RL from the base model, indicating that the model's capacity and training exposure may limit its ability to develop complex behaviors. Section: Long-COT patterns in pre-training data. In this section, we hypothesize that certain behaviors, like the model revisiting its solutions, may have been partially learned during pre-training. To explore this, we use two methods to check if such data exists online. First, we utilized a generative search engine, Perplexity.ai, to find web pages that explicitly show problem-solving steps from different perspectives or include verification after answers. Our search query and examples can be found in the appendix. Second, we employed GPT-4o to create a list of phrases associated with the aha moment, and then used the min-hash algorithm to search through Open Web Math, a dataset derived from Common Crawl. We discovered many matches in discussion forums, where conversations among users resembled long chain-of-thought reasoning, discussing various approaches and correcting errors. This suggests that long chain-of-thought reasoning may have originated from human dialogue, although we note that discussion forums are a common data source in Open Web Math. Based on these findings, we propose that reinforcement learning primarily helps the model recombine skills learned during pre-training to enhance performance on complex problem-solving tasks. Given the broad scope of our work, we plan to investigate this behavior more deeply in future research. In our work, we clarify long chain-of-thought reasoning in large language models and outline potential future directions. We believe that the size of the model is a key factor limiting the emergence of the behaviors we observed. Hung-Won Chung has suggested that smaller models may struggle with high-level reasoning and rely more on pattern recognition. Future studies could explore reinforcement learning with larger base models. We also recognize that the infrastructure for reinforcement learning is still developing. While trying to scale up to a 32 billion parameter model, we face challenges due to the high number of GPUs required. We noticed that open-source reinforcement learning frameworks often manage multiple systems for different training and inference tasks, which can lead to inefficient memory use. Additionally, algorithms like proximal policy optimization, PPO, operate in ways that can limit efficiency, especially in long chain-of-thought scenarios where variability in length can cause delays during inference. We anticipate advancements in machine learning and systems research to help address these challenges. We explored Reinforce++ as a quicker alternative to PPO for scaling data but found it to be less stable, resulting in lower training accuracies. This instability might stem from an untuned setup, so we refrain from making broad claims about the algorithm, presenting it instead as an observation that could benefit the community. Our findings show that combining rule-based verifiers with prompt set filtering is effective, but creating these rules and curating prompt sets across various domains is labor-intensive. This method embeds human-designed heuristics into the reinforcement learning environment, which may not be the most efficient long-term strategy. We question how we can effectively scale verification signals and whether there is a pre-training equivalent for designing reinforcement learning environments. We look forward to future research on silver supervision signals and self-supervised approaches in reinforcement learning verification. We believe reasoning is a latent capability in base models that has only recently been unlocked. Our analysis suggests that human dialogue in online forums may be a source of this emergent thinking. This leads us to wonder what other abilities might be waiting to be discovered from the vast human knowledge embedded in pre-training data. We look forward to more detailed analyses that trace model behaviors back to their data origins, which could reveal hidden capabilities within base models. Our paper aims to provide insights into scaling inference, compute, and training strategies to enable long chain-of-thought reasoning in large language models. The broader impacts of our work relate to the potential for improved reasoning and problem-solving across various fields, where models capable of interpretable and verifiable reasoning could foster innovation and enhance decision-making. We emphasize the importance of robust training data preparation, stability, and alignment with verifiable truths. We encourage future research to develop safeguards to ensure these capabilities are used responsibly, including careful design of reward shaping and training protocols to minimize unintended consequences while maximizing societal benefits. Section Summary. In this section, we explore the origins of long chain-of-thought (COT) reasoning in large language models, hypothesizing that such reasoning may stem from human dialogue found in online forums, which we identified through generative search and data analysis. We also discuss the challenges of scaling model size and reinforcement learning (RL) infrastructure, emphasizing the need for future research to unlock latent capabilities and improve verification methods in RL environments. Section: Acknowledgement. In this section, we express our gratitude to those who contributed to our work. We thank our colleagues for their support and valuable feedback. We also appreciate the funding sources that made this research possible. Lastly, we acknowledge the institutions that provided resources and facilities essential for our study.